So about 30 days ago, or I think 32 days ago now, I did this short where I said I was going to do 30 minutes of mental exercise a day for losing weight for 30 days, not do any other type of intervention like with any degree of intentionality, and just see how it goes, just purely based on the structured mental introspection. If we look on the left, this is the log I was doing for the mental exercises. My adherence rate was probably somewhere around 20 to 30%. I recorded when I did mental exercises, so 3x questions means I did questions, mental exercise. I'm not going to explain all the mental exercises, or maybe I'll just briefly explain them. And then when they're separated by a comma, and that's different ones. This should be a comma here. And so this is what it looked like, and just quickly like reporting. Mainly, I want to report on how it went, where I'm at now, and what I think of the intervention as a whole. So I dropped about early on, maybe around like day 11. I was down from 314.4 to like 305. I was basically down 10 pounds really early, and then I sort of stopped with the intervention. It was starting to feel like it wasn't that effective or monotonous, or it just like, just keeping on grinding the same things over and over was a bit of a grind. I pulled back off it. I went to a wedding. Like, I don't have a problem. I drank too much and I ate too much probably, but I gained back a little bit of weight, and I ended up right now. I've been trending at maybe 309, 308. So before the intervention, I was gaining weight, and now I am down like 5 or 6 pounds, which isn't a lot of weight, but I'm also not trying to do a strict diet. So overall, I think the intervention was effective, even though my adherence was quite low. My adherence was only 20 or 30%. And I think that the bigger takeaway from, and notably, I stopped like halfway through it, like entirely. And I think the bigger, because it was getting really boring, boring's not the right word. It no longer felt that the time was productive. Whereas before it felt like really, really productive, like in the beginning. And, the point of what you're trying to do is you're trying to change the way you look at something rather than just like brute force change your behavior. So you are exerting your will at the point of changing the way you think about something, and you're not trying to exert any will in terms of changing your behavior. Like, I didn't try and limit my eating at all during this like past 30 days, and I still managed to lose weight and like eat healthier for the most part. Not like way healthier, but I'm also like not trying in that regard. And so, but back to the intervention and the efficacy thing. I think that this intervention is effective, but I don't think brute forcing 30 minutes a day for 30 days is effective. And so that might sound like, okay, what do you mean by that? I don't think it's very efficient. I think if I stuck with this 30 days, I maybe would have dropped 20 pounds on the month. And that's for what, a 15-hour investment total, which, okay, is actually not that long amount of time, when you look at it. But I think there was a time where I did just mental exercises, and maybe about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and I just did 8 hours a day. I just cranked them. I just like wanted to see what that was like, and it felt like super super good for like the first 2 to 3 days, maybe 4 days, 5 days, something like this. And then it just like was a sharp drop off, and it then started to feel useless. And it's like there's diminishing marginal returns on like this sort of thing, and if you are trying to be as efficient as possible, this requires doing something that might not be. So generally, when you're focused on getting a particular result, you just want to like pound at it and like get it done. But the most efficient way for like losing weight might just be doing like 30 minutes of mental exercise once every 2 weeks. And this is not like unique to just losing weight specifically, but just to a lot of endeavors. It might be trying to get your mind right about it once every 2 weeks consistently for years, which is not a fun answer. And we're not talking about the only way to do something. I'm talking about the most efficient, dialed in, least effort input type of way of doing it, where you are trying to, you know, guide. It's like if you were sailing a ship, right? Where every 2 weeks you just come in and you're like, you make sure your ship's on course and then you let the ship just go. Like, this is kind of like a good metaphor for it, where every 2 weeks you just examine the way that you think about, your eating and your losing weight and your like fitness and all this, and you just like click, dial it in, and then let it go on course, and you just do this and you stay on the same course for years, right? Where this is the most efficient way of changing things, I think, or this is the most efficient way of changing things through mental exercise, where I'm not doing any sort of intervention. Like, I'm not trying to diet here. And this might sound rambling because I'm sorting out my thoughts on two different things. I'm sorting out my thoughts on the weight loss, and I'm sorting out my thoughts on structured mental introspection, mental exercise as an intervention in a general sense. And it's I'm going to come back to this discussion, and I'm just going to quickly go through the mental exercises and why I picked what I picked, and kind of what it looks like. I wish I could pull up more tabs without it. Alright, I'm going to pause this recording for a sec. Alright, I had to pause because some of the tabs I was going to show on my tabs were taboo. And so we're going to quickly just go through it. So questions is actually one of my favorite mental exercises ever. You just sit down and you write questions. And I think that the idea is the first like 30 or 40 questions are just throwaways, but you are trying to get your head into a space where you are just completely uninhibited, and the reason you are getting uninhibited is because you are not trying to answer any of the questions you're posing to yourself. You're just kind of exploring your own mind. And since you don't need the answers, and since there's no judgment about the answers, you're free to like explore a little, as well as trying to go through avenues and go through thought patterns that are not just habitual thought patterns, because you're trying to come up with new and unique questions. So it allows for a lot of creativity. Generally, when I start any mental exercise, like sort of intervention, the first step is like brainstorming of some kind. And it's not necessarily these questions brainstorm, but this is just an example of one. Okay, after that, sentence completion. This is like one of the very most basic ones. I'll see if I have a sentence completion thing here. I don't think... if I scroll down here, do I have it? Yeah, so what you do is you have a sentence stem, and you start the sentence and you just complete the sentence. This, as far as I know, was created originally by Nathaniel Branden. And so, for example, for the weight loss, I had these question stems, and I would just ask myself, I would just start the sentence, and then I would complete it. If I brought 5% more attention to losing weight, then I would ... And the idea is you're priming yourself. You are both priming, so you are just thinking more about this process of whatever the sentence stem is, and you're also rehearsing a state in which you are 5% more attentive to losing weight. So you are rehearsing the state of being more attentive to losing weight while you are doing the sentence. And so examples of, if you can read the stems to the side, I'm going to read them as well. If I brought 5% more attention to how my values inform my eating, right? Because a lot of times people overeat. It's not in a state where it's like this informed calculation where they're like, I'm thinking about my values, which are important to me, and then also this urge, and I'm weighing it in a rational way. No, it's just like you just give in to the urge. And so this is rehearsing eating in such a way that you're thinking about your values when you eat. If I brought 5% more attention to eating with intention, then I would ... If I brought 5% more attention to how making a caloric deficit easier, than I would ... right? So like an example of this is like there's like several studies that show that like the environment drastically changes what. There's a book called Thinfluence, which is like a great and interesting book. I have a review of it on my channel. And it shows that how environment itself can greatly affect how much you eat. So an example is if you have to drive past fast food on your way home from work, you're more likely to be overweight. So if you were bringing 5% attention to how to being in a on how to make being in a caloric deficit easier, you might actually take a different route home from work. Another one is just not having bad snacks in the house. Another one is having fruit on the shelf that is eye level in your fridge and having like unhealthy snacks in the drawers, right? Increasing the friction for unhealthy eating and decreasing the friction for healthy eating. Okay, this is a little getting down the beaten path, but this is the kind of thing which I am rehearsing thinking about when I'm doing the sentence stem, right? So I'm trying to create stems that cause me to rehearse sort of thought patterns that are going to be effective for losing weight while not actively trying to apply any willpower to the project of losing weight. If that makes sense. If it doesn't, feel free to put a question in the comments. If I brought 5% attention to how my environment informs my eating, then I would, and this ties into what I was talking about. Okay, I think that I didn't fill out the ecology check. So much the better. That would be a lot to unpack. So then weight loss values. So here I have a thing where I talk about how my values, and this might be a little incriminating to some extent, inform my eating. And right now I'm operating off of using 4 values, which strength, lust, power, and glamour. A lot to unpack why those are my values, but bear with me. And I have an intro. And for me, this is like, this sentence, I've had this for a while, and this is like really powerful to me. It is not that my best self is necessarily skinny. Simply that my best self would act with clarity and conviction concerning my eating in such a way that would best fulfill my values. I know that if I do not change now, I will continue to suffer. This is perhaps like not a good line. I would accept that, but it's there. It's not good for like because it like primes me to like suffer more. So like that's potentially why it's not good. But I'm also trying to be honest with myself. So okay, I must be the one to act consistently in this actualization of my primal body. I don't really use this primal language anymore. I kind of think it's like, to use the language of the people who use primal, I think this is like some beta cuck shit. But like, yeah, I think it's, the goal isn't to be like primal and like these like invocation of like this caveman thing. It's to like be effective, right? Which is like, in some ways it's like maybe not as sexy a word as primal, but it's also like a better word than primal. Like, I'm not trying to be an ape in the wilderness, my primal body. But yeah, I don't like these, like, I don't like alpha, beta, primal, like these types of words much anymore. But when I originally wrote this, I did, so is more than within my capacity. I must, moment to moment, choose to be my best self. Okay, and so then I have my 4 values, and we'll just like review just strength itself, which is just, for me, strength is like capacity in a purely like theoretical sense, and power is capacity in like a practical sense. Power is social, and strength is like on the level of the individual. Just to like briefly explain it, because yeah. I'm not sure I've ever been more confident now that an intervention would work for losing weight than this one. Now, this is true, and I was hyped up at the start of this, but again, lost a lot of momentum moving through. And so, like, this is me unpacking and explaining simultaneously. The question is how do we try and kick up a lot of momentum and not just like have this blip, but create this long-standing steering the boat over the course of years to create like systems, highly efficient systems for change. And I think what it might be is just doing 30 minutes of mental exercise once every 2 weeks for an extended period of time. Based on kind of thinking my way through this and thinking about it afterwards, and like, this was effective, but how do I make it more effective? And how do I make it more effective with a smaller time investment? Because I did spend like 10-12 hours in the structured mental introspection where I'm just sitting and asking and completing like these sentence stems, for example. This is an opportunity to test my capacity. So this is what I'm doing here is I'm creating like a story for myself that ties in with my values, where it's about testing my capacity here. And again, not using any willpower to try and make myself do anything in regards to the eating, but instead making it so that when I look at food, I don't just see, man, that looks delicious. I see, this is a test, which is like an interactive story of sorts that I can tell myself. Okay, my attentional strength is creating a space to respond rather than react when facing a food based decision. I think this is the biggest one because often when I see food, I just react to it and like want to eat it, and I can just like. I can just like plow through like 15,000 calories a day, and I have not. My maintenance is like maybe 4,000, 4,500, something like this. I'm a big boy. I weigh over 300 pounds. Although focusing on that as part of my identity is probably not a good thing. But that's a lot to unpack. But it's I just like respond and I eat, and I can just eat a lot. I have not met anyone who's like overweight who's ever told me that like they can eat as much as I can. Not that I like go out of my way to like really talk about like eating with people who are overweight because it's generally a sensitive topic. I mean, it's kind of like a sensitive topic for me, and I'm like self-deprecating about it, but like it's a source of insecurity because in my mind it's a signifier of weakness. Um, like I don't even like talking about it here. It makes me a little squirmish, but kind of like leaving that tangent aside. Uh, the attentional strength. So here I'm invoking my value of strength. My ability to control my attention is important to me. And creating a space to respond rather than react. This is a Buddhist principle where you don't react to you respond to situations rather than react. And so one of the things you can train with meditation is to like when something happens, you instead see your reaction to it and you think to yourself, you think about your reaction and you think, is this reasonable? Is this a reflection of who I am? This sort of thing. And this is responding rather than reacting. When I create this space with food, it's like, oh, am I just like reacting to the food, or am I just, is like, I'm thinking to myself, well, there's some food there. Do I actually want to eat it? Like, blah, 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 like this sort of thing. It's creating this space for this internal dialogue rather than instantly like switching to this, oh, I crave it, oh, I can't have it, like this like frenzied reactivity. Instead, it's more calibrated and slower paced, and it feels more controlled. Okay, not only does getting lean serve as a manifestation of my strength, again, this is like a narrative I've told myself that it's an indication that I'm weak, that I'm overweight, which is like, I grant that that's like, that might not be productive to believe, and it might not be true, but it's something that I do believe, and so I'm working with what I got here. It also serves to increase my strength in other areas. So here I'm thinking of, if I lose weight, I have better mental acuity, right? Better blood flow, better circulation, becoming stronger relative to my body weight. My strength goals, I'm pretty into like working out, lifting. If you can like scroll down in the comments and see my other YouTube where I lift weights, being stronger relative to my body weight is actually what my official goal is. It's a body weight relativity. It's not an absolute strength level. It's a relative like strength level. And so the easiest way to actually get stronger relative to my body weight at this point, because I'm already really strong, is actually just to lose weight. That's just it. And then finding other means to unwind. I think I actually just use eating as a way to unwind and a way to... I don't want to... So sometimes I just want to escape the reality of my life. And one of the things that's just a reflexive go-to to do it is to just eat, or play video games, or whatever it is. And this is just not a good strategy. And so, like, one of the weight loss signposts I had is, if I am feeling bored, or sorry, if I go to upstairs to eat, because my kitchen's upstairs, I first ask myself, am I doing this because I'm bored? And if the answer is yes, I'll just read a book instead, right? Where I'm not trying to remove the productive behavior of trying this escapism. I'm not trying to say the escapism's not allowed, because I don't want to like invest a ton of willpower. But if you are going to escape, try this instead. So there's that. If identity is a form of strength and the Looking Glass self-model, this is a lot to unpack, Looking Glass self-model is correct, then my appearance will inform the roles I am able to occupy. That is a lot to unpack. That is not, probably not that pertinent to the discussion at hand. I don't think I'm going to unpack that. If someone asks for it in the comments, I'll unpack it in the comments and maybe pin it or whatever. I don't think anyone cares. Okay, so that is weight loss values. And then I have weight loss signposts, which are more in the form of... So all of these were implementation intentions, which is a fairly good... it's a fairly effective intervention demonstrated in psychology. It's actually particularly effective for losing weight. I didn't use all the flexibility involved with implementation intentions, but just like reading off a few, they read a little like, if this is the case, then I'm going to do this. And so it is a rehearsal of a particular situation beforehand, because when you're in the situation, it's a lot harder to make the correct decision, but you can rehearse ahead of time. It's like sports. Like, you practice to get good at sports. It's like the same principle. And you practice so that when you're in the situation, you can like just you can just react properly. And I use the word react intentionally, where the autopilot response just becomes the good one. And so you're mentally rehearsing it. If I clean my plate, then I reflect on all the ways in which I have the powers tools to stop. So this is trying to prevent me from just going for plate after plate after plate of food, because I can just eat a lot. If I think about, and notice, I'm not saying I don't do it. I just reflect on how I have the capability to stop if I want to. Like, you're trying to be like water here, where you're not trying to use brute force to stop the binging. You're trying to do it in a, like, you're trying to respect that your knee-jerk response has some productive sort of intention behind it, and instead, like, kind of work with yourself. Depending on which model of willpower you look at, some believe that it's finite, and if it is finite, you don't want to like blow your load. You don't want to live your life blowing your load on eating, right? You want your eating stuff to be sorted without using any willpower, and then be able to use your willpower on other stuff. And so if your only approach to reining in your eating is just using willpower, you're just... you can do that to lose weight, but then you can't do anything else in life because your willpower is used up. This is if you think willpower is finite. There's actually evidence that it's like both either finite or not finite, and there's like research for both, and I'm not sure which one I believe, so like I don't... But if it is the case that it's finite, you don't want to be just only using willpower. Anyways, bit of a tangent. If I think about and want to put food back as I'm getting it out, then I put it back. This is actually like a stick thing for me, where like sometimes I'm getting a thing of food out and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, but then I do it anyways. I'm at a point where I actually want to resist and stop, but it's just so ingrained and rehearsed. And so being able to just break that pattern is useful, and this is a rehearsal of being able to break that pattern. If I prepare food and no longer want to eat it, then I have no problem putting it away in Tupperware in the fridge. Again, I have a problem with cleaning my plate. I just like have to do it, and like, inputting these systems where I'm rehearsing not having to do it is important, because I just like finish my plate, and it's like, even when I don't want to, I'm just like, oh, I got to. And that's like, I hate making Tupperware dirty. I actually really do hate it, but I have to hate it less. And then also, in parentheses, I can reframe this in weight loss per year per week. Like, if I avoid eating 300 calories of food a day, by just like, it's like half eaten on my plate, and I'm like, I don't really feel like it, I'll just put it away. That adds up quick. That's 1,500 calories a week, which is, you know, a little over a pound every, or it's a little under a pound every 2 weeks. And let's call it, out of 52 divided by 2 is 26. So let's call it 20 pounds a year. That's not a small thing. And of course, it's like you're more satiated if you eat as opposed to if you're not. It's not a perfect translation, but that sort of reframe can make it very easy to just put the food away instead. And that's the whole point. I'm trying to make it easier. I'm not trying to just brute force it with this sort of like with the method of my intervention here, and the intervention strategically the intervention of using mental exercise rather than just like brute force attacking it is trying to make it easier, and also tactically the way in which I'm implementing the mental exercise is also just trying to like make it easier because I want to lose weight, right? I want to eat in this more effective way, and so part of it is just getting the parts of myself that are not productive for this endeavor out of my own way, and then just letting the other parts just naturally vibe. Man. Okay. If they have an urge to eat in a way that deviates from the diet plan, then I first eat chilies and drink water. If you're full of water, you can't eat food. Um, I know this sounds absurd, but like if you just drink a half a gallon of water and then see how much you can eat, and then okay, the answer is you actually like it'll clear through your digestive system pretty quick, but it's like a speed bump, and it's a speed bump where I'm not denying myself any food, and so again, it's just trying to put in these systems that are very willpower low in terms of because it's easy to just say, oh, if I sit down to eat, I consume exactly this many calories at this macro, and it's like, okay. Anyway, and this is the one I was talking about earlier. If I have a desire to go upstairs and eat, then I ask myself whether there's hunger, nutrition, or desire, or out of boredom, a desire to escape. If I know that I'm about to eat out of boredom/avoidance, then I stop and read a book for 5 minutes first. Notice I do not say I can't go upstairs and eat. I just have to stop and read for 5 minutes, which is a very easy thing. Often, if you have an intervention where you struggle, you can just you can create a system that's very easy to implement, and just commit to doing the easy system to implement. Like another good one is like going to the gym. I have a rule for going to the gym, which is if I'm supposed to go, I have to go. I just absolutely 100% have to go to the gym. I don't have to work out. I just have to go to the location. I have to go to the gym. And then, if I don't want to work out, I just drive right back home. And the truth is once I've arrived at the gym, I usually just oh, okay, I'll work out. And then, sometimes I just do 2/3 of the workout, and it's kind of whatever. Because the first 30% of the workout is actually the most productive. But it's the system where I'm saying to myself, all I have to do is get myself there. If I get myself there, I can't be mad at myself. This is the criteria. I just have to get there. Because this is the low bar I set myself so that it's easy to if I'm telling myself as I'm thinking about going that all I have to do is go there, then it's easier to get myself there. And then once I'm there, the wheels have started turning. Then it's easier to work out. And so it's about reducing friction. Okay. So, and then this is these are categorized for just late night binging. I have intentional space, cravings, post binge. And so part of these time is both constructing these and also just reading them. Ecology check is an interesting mental exercise where you look for the positive sort of motivation behind the negative behavior, this is from NLP. I actually think this is fantastic to do. I thought about it in terms of eating a lot, and I actually just really like binge eating. Just a lot. And it's not necessarily something I think I want to get rid of. I came to this conclusion, which, okay, it to some degree sounds absurd, but for me it was in many ways a manifestation of freedom and of power. I can't eat this. It's It's like a capability thing. It's like I can just crush food, and I really can. And so for me, then I told myself, like, after doing like the ecology check where this comes up, it's like, well, am I binging intelligently? And the answer is no. I'm just binging continuously, and they're weak ass little binges, right? Just like every day or like every other day, and it's like, if I was being intelligent and structured about this, if I actually cared about like having a high quality binge, this is not the approach. The approach is actually to be in a caloric deficit most of the time, because you're trying to organize the rest of your life around the fact that you want to binge, and you're saving up those calories, and you're going to do like a food eating challenge or some shit like that, like something substantive, something actually impressive and delicious, not just random leftovers that you're just like crushing. I don't know, like well, some leftovers are delicious, but you get the idea. It's You don't have to not binge necessarily. You can organize your life around the binge, but man, please binge intelligently. So this is like something, and so sure, I could root out this desire to binge, if I wanted to. I could try and binge in other ways, like workout binges. But the thing is I actually just enjoy a good challenge every once in a while, and like eating 12,000 calories in a sitting is challenging. I don't know. But yeah, so this is, another one is like, I realized that a lot of it was just like, I was eating to try and escape doing other stuff. It was like a form of procrastination, really. And if I have enough procrastination strategy, I can just never do the things I'm supposed to do. And so, you know, and there's a positive intention behind procrastination. It's to avoid pain, to avoid discomfort. And so framing it like this helps, I think, provide a better approach. So you can look into NLP ecology check if you want some like a more substantive explanation. But there's my short one. Mr. Barca is okay. So this is like where you're having a fake dialogue with yourself. I named this one Mr. Barca because one of like my heroes is Hannibal Barca, and it's similar to like when I first did this intervention, it was like Mr. Biggs, and like this was in high school, long time ago. But the idea is you are having a conversation with yourself, but it's an idyllic version of yourself, or it's like someone you hold on a pedestal, like Hannibal Barca, and you are asking them, "How do I solve this problem?" And so it's a form of brainstorming where you are trying to, you're framing you yourself, like the weak version of yourself that can't solve the problem, is asking this idyllic version, and you are trying to, through a dialogue, kind of unlock stuff that you know to be true, but you just don't admit to yourself, or stuff that you are unaware of, or you're just trying to, like with any brainstorming, really get to some other place that you haven't been before in terms of how you think about the thing. Okay. Weight loss values, signposts, values, signposts, values, signpost, backwards planning. Okay. So this is where backwards planning is you figure out what you want, and then you say, in order to do that, what do I need to do? And then you take that thing, and you say, in order to do that, what do I need to do? And you just keep doing that endlessly until you reach something that is actionable now, and then you just do that thing. That is the most simplistic explanation. Another one is a lot of people have goals, and goals are actually not actionable, like by themselves. What's actionable is systems. And so a lot of what backwards planning is doing is you're turning goals into systems. And so you're turning things that you want, like I want to weigh 200 pounds or whatever. I actually don't want to be that small. And you're turning them into practices. Like eating chilies and drinking water before you know you're going to binge, because that just decreases the amount of calories you're going to binge with. This sort of thing. I could go into more detail, but I'm trying to slog through this. Or not slog, but I'm trying to get through this. Sentence completion, cognitive behavioral therapy. I won't get into that one. Implementation intentions. I think I showed some of those off already. Weight loss values, signposts, impotence, value signpost, impotence, sentence completion. I showed some of those, and it's just all more of the same stuff. Okay, so that is here, I'll pull it on this, I guess, and have a bit more of a chat. So, this is kind of what I've done, and the things I'd like to just like emphasize here is just completely taking all of the willpower to try and eat less out of the equation. I at no point like tried to eat less. Where I put my effort was into this structured mental introspection. That's the only place I put my effort. If I wanted to eat more, I just ate more. And believe me, there are a lot of times I wanted to eat more. The truth is, I weigh 300 pounds. My maintenance calories is 4,000. Like, I can eat way more than a normal person and still lose weight. And so, but this I think is the approach. I think this type of approach is particularly effective. I lost weight. I went from gaining weight, maybe 3-4 pounds a month, to losing weight after doing this. And so I think the question moving forward is, how do I put in a more effective system? And I think I touched on it at the beginning, and I've thought about it quite a bit. I think that there needs to be a more strategic type of intervention with mental exercises, and the mental exercises need to be more long-term thinking in terms of their implementation. Because I think what I do now is I like hit a point where I'm like, oh, I just have to lose weight. I'm like 315 pounds. And then I do one of these interventions, and the initial kick is super effective. I do a whole bunch of all this stuff, and then I drop it off completely, and it goes by the wayside, and it's just one, like, I think I'm lagging here. Okay, maybe I'm done lagging now. I wasn't sure if I was lagging for the recording. Sorry for that. Um, but it's like it's a reaction. It's I get to like 315 pounds or whatever. I do a whole bunch of mental exercises. I get back under 300, and then I coast, and then I binge eat my way back up to 315. It's not effective, and it's not efficient. And I think that the efficient strategy is not to do some brute force diet. I can do a brute force diet. I've done it a ton of times before. It's not that hard to just eat 800 calories a day if I really want to, which is like, I'll hemorrhage a ton of muscle doing that as well, so that's another reason not to do it. But it's not, if that's the only thing I'm focused on, that's actually really easy. But the problem is like, I don't want to use all of my mental resources in just enforcing that one thing. And not only that, it's not a system. It's not something. It's not a long-term solution. It's not a nudge of the boat to be on the course and just leaving it alone. And I think that the strategy of doing this sort of mental exercise for 30 minutes once every 2 weeks, I think this is the type of intervention that's going to be most efficient and effective. Especially once you have the knowledge of like a lot of systems that make losing weight easier, like not driving past the fast food place. Like if there's a fast food place that you tend to just like drive through on your way home and like binge eat it, just pick a different route home. It's the this sort of attitude and approach where you are just trying to make things as easy as possible for yourself. If you avoid tempting situations, it actually just makes it just way easier. And so it's being able to have these sorts of goals and like sentence completions, that like are consistent with like what the like scientific literature on weight loss interventions is, and you're just looking at how do I get that sort of perspective in 30 minutes every 2 weeks. And I think that this is actually going to be true for a lot of interventions. Like, if you're trying to be more confident, hold yourself up, nice posture, like this type of stuff. I think that the intensive approach is not, it might be really effective in the short term, but you are trying to create a long term change, and so that might require more of a long term intervention. And the problem with just really just brutalizing like just a ton of it out the gate in terms of mental exercise is it very quickly gets boring or feels redundant. And then it's really easy to just stop. And then when you stop, it's like it's not a, you just tend to stay stopped, right? So it's a matter of, I think the system is important. I'm going to put in together the system where it has a long-term view of things, because the mental exercises are actually quite effective, but the problem is how do you implement them in the most effective way. I think I'm rambling a little bit in regards, and I've talked mainly about mental exercise, so I'll bring it back into the weight loss thing and like where I'm at and where I think I'm going. Like I weighed in quite heavy today, but I ate quite a bit yesterday, so it's like not reflective of an overall trend. I think I was 310 today, which is still lower than I was when I started this, by 4.5 pounds basically. And overall, I've been around 309, 308 though, and that's what I was at the end of the 30 days. I think I was 308. Um, but this, I think I want to try and keep this overall just slow weight loss, low effort, highly efficient approach. And so what I have to do from here uh, is create a system that I should have created a long time ago in regards to mental exercise, like a sort of 4 week plan, and fill it out and just do it every day and just cross off the week. I'm not sure exactly what this will look like. It will include other interventions as well, not just like weight loss interventions, but for example, focusing up more on my voice and my vocal qualities, because that's something I care about, but don't think about perhaps as often as I should. In fact, that's why I originally started the YouTube, was so I could focus on that more and think about that more. That's just one example, but like maybe I do that once every 4 weeks. Like I have a vocal like was it signposts thing that I spend 10 minutes on once every 4 weeks, and just slowly building up this system where I'm putting like the pieces together to prime myself and rehearse certain things. Um, I need to put more thought into this. I don't have an explanation now. I definitely think that mental exercise, like I covered in my mental exercise thing, I definitely think it's an important and powerful intervention, because I think that our ability to have structured mental introspection, I think this is actually the site at which we have agency. I don't think it's contained in our actions. I think our actions are born out of the way we think about things. And that where our control truly is the way we think about things, which then lead to actions. You know, the 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 thoughts are the seeds and the actions are the plants. And the plants are more visually impressive, but they don't happen without the seeds. You can't take any action you didn't think about taking. You know? Um, but yeah, more thought needs to be put into not just. I think the mental exercises are effective, but it's not just the efficacy of the intervention by itself, but it's this: how do you organize a long term application of the intervention that's trying to be as effective as possible and has an appreciation for how novelty just gets crushed by just repeated every day, 3 times a day, doing this exact same type of intervention. Just the novelty of it just goes way down, and then it gets hyper boring. The it doesn't hit the dopamine the same way, which okay, maybe that's a problem with being overstimulated, and maybe you need to meditate more, and there's you can make some sort of argument for this, but I also just think the I did I haven't counted, but I think this is maybe 30%. This is oh, actually wait. So it's 30 minutes a day for 30 days. So that's 15 hours total. This is maybe a third. Maybe it's a little bit more. Let's call this 6 hours, what I did, what we have here. All this. If I stretch this 6 hours over 12 months, it would probably be way more effective than it just doing it over, the course of. I think I made this point already, but I need to reflect on that moving forward. As far as discussion goes, I don't know. Anyone have weight loss stories? I guess this one was mine. Here's my minimally effective, minimal effort weight loss story where I didn't really try that hard to lose weight. I just thought about the process of losing weight, did some structured mental introspection, lost a few pounds, and ayo, here we go. Anyways, that's all I have for you. Do all the YouTube algorithm stuff. Feel to like, comment, subscribe, share, etc. And if you have been sitting for over 2 hours, I would suggest getting up and taking a walk because it's good for your health, increases blood flow, which will improve productivity. You'll probably enjoy whatever you're procrastinating from work on more if you just take a walk first, actually. But yeah, do that.